Son of a bitch. Were you just here?
No, I've been sitting here waiting for us to start. For the past 3 days.
So you didn't just break into my house and take the cup?
How can I get from the East Coast back here so quickly?
Good point. Ooh. We may need to get a new cup then, because someone may have just made off with it.
What? Oh man, I told you to keep that under lock and key.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, well, let's just get on with the recap.
You're right. The 2015 NHL Playoffs are done and over with, and this year, the Chicago Blackhawks were the last team standing. But before we talk about the finals, what were some of your favorite highlights during the first 3 rounds?
Well, let's see. Highlights. How about the way that Calgary took Vancouver out in 6 games to make it to the next round? I mean, Vancouver took them for granted, and Calgary was determined to show something in the playoffs this year, and they did. I have to give them props for that. Or how about Winnipeg? They didn't make it past the first round, but their sea of white was outstanding. I had no words, especially after when Winnipeg got removed from the playoffs, and all you can hear at the end of the horn was applause and cheers and ovations. Everybody was standing in that crowd cheering on Winnipeg, thanking them for a season and also an extended run in the playoffs. Granted, that's not quite, I guess, highlight material, but those things kind of stood out for me. But if we're really talking about highlights, I think for me would be how when we advanced in the playoff series, going from the quarters to the semis to the finals to the actual Stanley Cup finals, that you would see less and less goals from each team. Like they were playing harder and harder, and it was harder to score. Like it was an actual playoff series. There wasn't a one-sided team or another sided team. These guys actually came out to play, and they showed it. Like it was a actual playoff series that you would grow to expect to see in something like this. It was quite amazing. How about you?
I really did love the sea of white in Winnipeg. It was nice to see the Jets back in the playoffs this year. True, they didn't get that far, but it was definitely a step in the right direction for the club, and something the people of Winnipeg have been waiting a long time for. Plus, being a sucker for big-time comebacks, I really liked the second round match between the Rangers and the Capitals. Just when you think Washington could make a good run in the playoffs, New York comes back from a 3-1 deficit to advance to the conference finals for the second year in a row after a 1-goal Game 7 win. Speaking of Game 7s, we got quite a few of those this year. 2 in the first round, 1 in the second, and 2 in the third. Plus, given how the Cup finals went in the first 5 games, I'm actually surprised that that series didn't go 7 games as well. I mean, until Game 6, we had nothing but 1-goal games in the finals.
That's true. That's something you don't really see a lot of now, even though actually a lot of people didn't really want either team in the playoffs. But they actually showed the critics something else, and in all honesty, it turned out to be a very exciting final series. There was a lot of nail-biting 1-goal games in there that just, wow. Like it was an actual Stanley Cup series. I couldn't tell who was going to win. However, I wanted to ask you something. Now, there was some controversy in the Tampa Bay Lightning organization in regards to not selling tickets outside of the state of Florida. Now, from the sounds of things, they did this with Montreal, and they did this with Chicago as well. I also heard that Ottawa may have done this as well, but I didn't really see too much about this. However, I feel that if this happens again, there should possibly be some rules put into place in regards to possibly selling tickets outside of the states or the provinces for that matter. And that was just kind of unfair. I actually didn't really like it myself, but what do I know? I'm not part of an organization. What did you think about this?
I can see what they were trying to do, but from a business standpoint, their implementation of the idea was very poor. What intelligent business would turn away people willing to buy their product, especially in entertainment business? If they wanted to make sure their arena was not predominantly populated by fans of opposing teams, then they could have made only a limited number of tickets available to non-residents. But even so, I don't believe sporting events should be restricted in that manner. They're events that are meant to be enjoyed by anyone who wants to attend.
I fully agree. And if that was the case, you would see a lot of angry fans between the Battle of Alberta, where people drive 3 hours between Calgary and Edmonton to go watch games at each other's rinks, or for that matter, Toronto versus Ottawa, where they can drive either way, or even Chicago and Toronto, or Toronto and Montreal, Ottawa and Montreal. Overall, that was not something that I would expect to see. It was actually really poorly executed. I really hope they actually make some changes for next year on this ruling. Speaking of which, I wanted to ask you, what do you think of our new Stanley Cup champions? I mean, I know you didn't choose them for the West, but at any point in time during the playoffs, seeing them play, did that change your mind at all?
I think it was after they made it to the conference finals that I looked at the remaining teams and thought that they looked to be the most consistent and solidly built team left. How about you? You had them reaching the finals but losing to Montreal. After Montreal lost in the second round, did you think Chicago would go all the way?
With the teams that were left after the first round, I knew Chicago had a really good chance. However, Anaheim was still pretty strong. But I figured they'd probably lose their steam and just sort of peter out in the third round if they made it past the second round. And they did. Chicago found their weakness and took them out. Now, as for the East, I had no idea that Tampa Bay was going to go all the way. That one was a total surprise for me. Granted, after the second round with Montreal being knocked out, I kind of had an inkling, but I was really hoping for the conference finals that the Rangers would take out Tampa Bay. Not that I don't like Tampa Bay. Well, you know. Anyways. But that didn't happen. Unfortunately, I'm kind of glad that it didn't happen. Because we wouldn't have the finals as we did if the Rangers were in it. I think Tampa Bay was a better choice to be in the finals. I don't think Rangers would have done or fared so well against Chicago.
I don't know about that. I think New York might have put up just as tough of a fight as Tampa did. But I guess none of that really matters at this point. Congratulations to the Chicago Blackhawks on their 2015 Stanley Cup victory. And thank you for joining me again this year, PK. It was...
Hold that thought for a minute.
Hey, we're not done yet, PK.
Oh, there it is. There we go.
What the hell, PK?
What? I got lazy. I had one of my fans come and pick it up for me. They say you have a really nice place.
Damn it, PK. This still isn't over.
You're right. It isn't. However, your beer supply is empty now, so thanks for that too.
PK!